Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Om Tad Vishnu paramam padam. Namaste. Welcome everyone to our live stream satsanga. Thank you so much for being here. As you know, we do this every Monday, no matter what. Every Monday we come together and we do this as a service for all of you, sincere devotees of Sriman Narayana throughout the world. We do this for all of you, sincere spiritual seekers, sincere devotees, individuals who strive to know truth. It's for you that every Monday we come together and we have this online satsanga where we discuss the highest truths available in human language, where we discuss Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. What we're going to be doing tonight is commenting on several verses from the Rig Veda, and this will be quite special, actually. The Rig Veda is a truly amazing work. It is the oldest written language known to humanity, bar none. And that's a conclusive statement. All scholars agree with this. It doesn't matter if some individual here or there disagrees with that statement. This is authoritatively true. The Rig Veda is known to be the oldest written language known to humanity, the oldest written literature known to humanity, Sanskrit being the oldest language. And what we're going to be doing is commenting on two verses from Rig Veda. Before we do that, however, I just want to make a very quick announcement, but a very important announcement. You'll remember that the last time that we got together, last Monday, I believe, the talk was dedicated primarily to this idea of activating the coming golden age. And what we spoke about the last time, and to my great happiness, that video that came out literally 7 days ago has been seen by thousands of people now. What we discussed in that video is the fact that on Sunday, November 1st, at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, the International Sanatana Dharma Society is going to be organizing something very special. And what this is what we are calling Holy Name Day. And on this day, at that exact time, what we are hoping is that all of you, that is all of our followers, supporters throughout the world, but really anyone who is a supporter of Dharma, will at that exact moment, all together in unison, recite the holy name of God 108 times. And very specifically, the mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Again, what we want to encourage millions of people throughout the world to do is on that day, again, Sunday, what is for us in Omaha, Sunday, November 1st, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, please make the adjustment for your time zone. And also please keep in mind daylight savings time as well, which will be changing on that day. So please be aware of that. But at that exact moment, all together, we're hoping that millions of people will recite this sacred mantra in order to do several things. In order to defeat evil in this world, this evil that has been very sadly controlling our world and causing so much suffering for at least several hundred years now, certainly since modernity. We want to defeat this evil, and more, we want to help to bring about the golden age that I and others have been speaking about for so long, that is indeed about to commence. As strange as that may seem to some people, because yes, the world has become crazier. Some people can easily say, but wait, how can a golden age be just around the corner when things are getting so crazy and so violent and we have COVID shutting down the planet, etc., etc., etc.? These are merely the death throes of evil. And a golden age is indeed about to commence. And again, to empower yourself, to ask for the grace of God, to ask for strength, and in general to help to commence this golden age. This is why on this day, on that date, at that time, we ask you to please join with us and recite this sacred mantra 108 times. Om Namo Narayanaya. You can say this mantra in your mind, you can say it out loud, you can whisper it. The important thing is that you sit in meditation and you say this mantra 108 times, and that you do so sincerely, you do so with great devotion, and you do so understanding that you are helping to usher in God's grace in this world in such a way that evil will be defeated and good will be victorious in every way. So thank you for listening to my announcement about that, and I look forward to seeing you all on that day, wherever you are. With that, as always, I would like to read these two verses from Rig Veda, the oldest writing on earth, and to then comment on this briefly. After that, we will have questions and answers. As always, please hold on to your questions. I will not see them if you ask them now or any time as I'm giving my talk, and thus your question won't be answered, and I would like to see your questions. I will let you know when it's time to ask questions, and thus I can see them. So with that, these are two verses from Rig Veda 1:22, verses 20 and 21. And I'll just read them together as if it's one unit, which it really is. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. The verse says this: the wise ever contemplate that supreme abode of Vishnu as the eye ranges over the sky. The wise, ever vigilant and diligent in praise, amply glorify that which is the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. So, truly beautiful two verses, and again, this is from the most ancient writing known to humanity, Rig Veda, and this is actually quite well known, these two verses. This is something that people have read in the past in various contexts, etc. But now you know exactly where it's from. I've even been known to recite the Sanskrit of this verse periodically, and for those who have heard me recite this, well, now you're going to hear me comment on it. So hopefully you will enjoy this. So, first of all, what this verse is speaking about very specifically is the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm. Paramam padam. Paramam padam in this verse means quite literally that highest quarter, that highest realm, that highest place, and very specifically of Vishnu. Vishnu is used in the second verse, vishnor. So thus we know that what is being discussed here is very specifically the realm known as Vaikuntha in other Vedic literature. There are several terms for the spiritual realm, as should not be surprising for anyone who knows Sanskrit or who has been listening to my lectures for some time. You know that very often, unlike in English, there is one important philosophical concept, but there can be several different words for that concept that are used in accordance with the context in question. So in this particular case, paramam padam is the word that is used, meaning again, that highest quarter, that highest realm, that highest place of Vishnu, vishnor, of Vishnu. In other places, again, this is known as Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha very specifically meaning that place of no anxiety. That's quite literally what Vaikuntha means. That it is a realm where anxiety is not even a possibility. That realm where quite literally the opposite state of one of anxiety is one that is experienced at all times. So that is what is being spoken about here. That's the main theme of, let's say, the object that is being spoken of. But who is the individual who is being spoken of here? Well, that's the wise person. That's the individual who has true spiritual insight, the person who is a true yogi, the person who is a true spiritualist, the wise philosopher. That is the individual who truly understands, who has had not just a philosophical understanding, but a direct experiential perception of that which is true. That is the wise person. That describes, certainly many of you who are listening now, it describes what many of you aspire to be as well, is a wise individual, a yogi, a sage, etc. So that's who's being spoken of here. Now, with that understanding, let's delve a little bit deeper into these two extremely important verses. So the wise, those wise individuals who I just described, what do? They ever contemplate that supreme abode of Vishnu. They ever contemplate that. So thus, what does this mean? What these two verses are speaking about very specifically is, again, not just wise individuals in, let's say, just the general sense, but more. It's talking about what is the wisest of all individuals. What do they contemplate? They contemplate that which in turn is the highest thing. So thus, again, this word, paramam, padam, that which is the highest reality. So thus, looking at what it is, what is the object that they are contemplating, that is not just that which is secondary, tertiary, etc., but no, that which is the highest, we can infer that these wise people that are being spoken of are those wise people who indeed know the highest. So thus, we're talking about the greatest of sages. So thus, again, let's look at this. The wise ever contemplate that supreme abode of Vishnu. So there are many verses, many of which we've covered in the past, both in these live streams, but other videos, other lectures that have not been released as videos as of yet. There are hundreds of verses where it is explained again and again in Narada Bhakti Sutras, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Mahabharata, and I can go on and on throughout the Upanishads, that the highest yogi is an individual who is practiced and perfected in bhakti, in devotion. And more, that greatest yoga, that is, that greatest vehicle for making spiritual advancement, is indeed bhakti or bhakti yoga. This is undebatable, truly undebatable, because again, there are hundreds of verses that have discussed this. The totality of the Bhagavad Gita explains this. So thus, again, by the wise, what are we talking about? We're talking about individuals who are of necessity bhaktas, individuals who indeed have great devotion toward Narayana, toward Vishnu. And again, how can we infer this? By the very construction of this verse itself. Because what is it that they are contemplating? You see, they are not contemplating merely Brahman in the objective philosophical sense. They are not contemplating merely some being, pick a being, who is more powerful than them. So simply some demigod, demigoddess, etc. They're not contemplating shunya or nothingness. And I can go on and on. What are they contemplating very specifically? That realm of Vishnu, which is only entered by devotion. So thus, again, these are bhaktas, individuals who practice bhakti yoga, who are being discussed here. Now, interestingly, I want to go actually even a little bit deeper into just this one little clause of this first sentence. Why the supreme abode of Vishnu? It's a very interesting thing. A few people have noted this, but very few people have actually had the answer to this question. That is, why not just say, oh, the wise ever contemplate Vishnu? Why the supreme abode of Vishnu? This is a very interesting, very important question. Well, in this particular case, what this verse is trying to explain is very specifically that the greatest devotee certainly contemplates Vishnu, but truthfully, that's something that a devotee, that a yogi, that a wise person can do even now within the material world. By focusing on very specifically the abode of Vishnu, Vaikuntha, what this verse is again inferring is that that wise individual will also have entry to that realm that they are contemplating. So thus, what this verse is, and again, I have to use this word, inferring, anumana. What this verse is inferring is that this wise individual, because he is contemplating indeed Vishnu, it is the abode of Vishnu, so it's of course by default that of course he is a devotee of Vishnu, but more, by contemplating this abode of Vishnu, it means that he is in that abode. So thus, what this verse is saying is that by such devotion to Vishnu, to Narayana, an individual is assured of liberation, certainly, but greater than that, of entry to that divine realm of God, what is called the kingdom of God. So this is thus why this verse is so deep when we go deeply beneath the surface and not just skim it very quickly as so many people do. And truthfully, just this one clause alone I could talk about for another hour, but we don't have another hour. So let's go on. And how? As the eye ranges over the sky. Beautiful poetry. You know, it's an interesting thing. People have noted this, that truthfully all the Vedic literature is beautiful. I have yet to encounter a text of Vedic literature that is not beautifully composed, poetic in its imagery, and just truly beautiful in every way. Again, whether it's the Upanishads or I can go on and on, any of these scriptures, they're all beautiful. But the Rig Veda, in fact, the four Vedas very specifically, are indeed known to be poetic. You know, they are actually poetic works. They are works that are hymns. So thus, it is especially when you look at the four Vedas that you truly find some very beautiful imagery. So thus, this example is given that in the same way that this wise person is contemplating the abode of Vishnu, it's as the eye ranges over the sky. So what does that mean? Well, imagine yourself looking up at the sky. There are several things that are of importance in this one little clause that are symbolic, actually, but in a very vivid way. You know, not hidden symbolism and esoteric sort of symbolism that you have to speculate about a lot. No, it's quite clear, actually. First of all, for your eyes to range over the sky. What does this mean? First of all, you look up. And we know that in all religion, in all real religion, in all true religion, of course, it's a very interesting thing that you indeed look upward when you are appealing to the transcendent. You have this sense that the transcendent is not down, the transcendent is not behind me, the transcendent is above. So thus, again, giving this symbolic idea that the wise person is appealing not just to anyone, but to that which is truly above, the most transcendent of all transcendent things. That's the first thing. Second thing, as the eye ranges over the sky, in other words, in the same way that the human eyes, with our human eyes, we can not only look at the sky, but understand how vast the sky is, and literally our eyes ranging throughout the sky, and barely even comprehending how enormous the sky is, how high up and how deeply it goes into the upper atmosphere, and to our right and to our left, etc., for how many untold miles. Well, this is simply a terrestrial, symbolic sort of understanding of what it means to contemplate that realm of Vishnu. In the same way that even when we look at the sky, we realize we are looking at something enormous, something wondrous. That sky does not even exist in comparison to the greatness of that spiritual sky of Vaikuntha. But still, through this beautiful poetry, it's attempting to give us some sense of feeling of what it's like to encounter that divine realm of God. So let's go on. We'll go on now to the next verse. And again, the people who are being spoken of are the wise. Again, these individuals, the wise. The wise, ever vigilant and diligent in praise, amply glorify that which is the supreme abode of Vishnu. So again, we're still talking about those individuals who are wise, and again, not to repeat, but who are yogis, who are sincere, truly sincere spiritual seekers, not spiritual dabblers, I'm sorry to say. In a future lifetime, certainly continue to be sincere. But for those individuals who are true spiritual seekers and who wish to know God and to know truth at any expense, for those individuals, this is who we're talking about. Now, what do such individuals have to do? What are their characteristics? First, they are ever vigilant. Ever vigilant. So, interestingly, what I was just saying a second ago. The truly wise are not just anyone. Spirituality is not a democracy. Spirituality does not acknowledge egalitarianism. There is no we in spirituality. There is no collective salvation. Rather, we are all individual beings at various stages in our spiritual progress. Some of us are very advanced to the point where we are 1 inch away from achieving liberation. Some of us are a mile below that. Some of us are halfway there. Some of us are simply beginning. Some of us aren't interested at all. Some of us are on the very opposite path and are simply demonic and have no hope of understanding true spirituality in this lifetime. Thus, we're all different. We're all very different. So what this verse is speaking about are, again, those individuals who are sincere and advanced yogis and who are ever vigilant. What is meant by this? Well, what I have attempted to explain to people for many years now, and that is spirituality is something serious. It's so sad that since the 60s, essentially, slightly before then, but especially since the 60s, people have this very lazy, lackadaisical sort of idea of spirituality that, oh, yes, just as long as you have the slightest touch of sincerity, yes, it's all fine, everything's going to be good, and you'll make spiritual advancement, and we'll all get to the same place, and etc., etc., etc. No, that is sadly not the case. We are rewarded spiritually in accordance with our own both sincerity but also ability to practice spirituality. That is, to acquire wisdom, to understand wisdom, to put wisdom into practical application. That means that we have to have self-discipline. I'm sorry to tell those individuals who think that you can be a lazy yogi, that is an oxymoron. That is an oxymoron. We have to have self-discipline. We must have self-control. We must have control over our bodies. We must have control over our minds. We must have control over our speech. We must have control over everything that we are. We must have true sincerity. We must have faith. We must have devotion. We must do sadhana, etc., etc. We have to be ethical. We have to be virtuous. We have to be people who we do not lie. We do not steal. We do not cheat. We do not take drugs. We do not smoke. We do not drink. We are focused like a laser beam, in the same way that, materially speaking, you see people who they want success, real success in a specific field, they focus like a laser beam. Well, is this not the case also for spirituality? Of course it is. And again, this has been the problem since the 60s, is people have pretended that, no, it's not. No, spirituality is different. You don't need any of these things. You don't have to be disciplined. You don't have to be anything. You don't have to be ethical. And as long as you have quote unquote sincerity, fake sincerity, i.e. you call yourself sincere, well, that's all that matters. No. If that were the case, then we would be living in a realm where half of the people around us would be liberated yogis now, wouldn't they? But they're not. No, we need all of these finer qualities. Thus, the wise person is ever vigilant in their practice of the yoga system and of spirituality. They are diligent in praise. Now, what does this mean? It's interesting. The word rig in Rig Veda means praise, means to praise, like a praising hymn. So the wise is diligent in praise. What does this mean? This means that they are expressing pure devotion, pure love toward God. So again, when I said earlier that these two verses are talking about not just the wise in general, but very specifically those individuals who are practicing bhakti, who are bhaktas, who are devotees of Narayana. Now, indeed, we see this. They must be diligent in praise. That is, that they are focusing all of their devotional awareness and consciousness and service upon one object. And what is that object? And they amply glorify, so again, more devotion, that which is the supreme abode of Vishnu. So again, this verse, these two verses from Rig Veda, the most ancient literature, the most ancient book upon the face of the earth, is explaining Vaishnavism. It is explaining Vaishnavism perfectly. It is explaining the very essence of Vaishnavism. You know, it's hilarious how once in a blue moon you'll find some individual who will pretend that they know something about Vedic spirituality, but in actuality they're just extreme neophytes. They looked at the internet a lot, read some Wikipedia articles on Hinduism, and they'll try to make the claim that, Vaishnavism, that is the path of devotion to Lord Vishnu, is either something very recent, meaning, 2,000, less than 2,000 years old, or that B, it's something that was influenced by Christianity, because obviously, many of the teachings of Vaishnavism seem to mirror some of the teachings of Christianity, etc. And for me, it's always hilarious whenever I am listening to people saying these things, understanding that, they have not read Rig Veda, have they? They have not read the Upanishads. We've looked at several of the Upanishads that say almost even more clearly than this, that Vaishnavism is indeed the very core of Sanatana Dharma. But yes, such individuals are truly foolish, are truly individuals who have not studied the Vedic scriptures very, very deeply at all. Again, they probably read some good Wikipedia articles, played online reading various articles about Hinduism. But when you read the actual Vedic scriptures, as many of us have, as I have done, I've read actually the four Vedas, I've read all the Upanishads, etc. What you see again and again and again is that indeed the Vaishnava Dharma, devotion, bhakti toward Vishnu, is at the very heart of every single text of Vedic scriptures that exists. And going back as far as what we've just looked at, Rig Veda, which is at least 5,000 years old. I've estimated, and people estimate different things. When I was working on my PhD dissertation, I estimated, looking at all the scholarship available, that Rig Veda was first written down probably approximately 3800 BC. And it was carried down orally from generation to generation to generation to generation for who knows how long before then. And here we have the very essence of Vaishnava Dharma, devotion to Narayana, to Vishnu, in the oldest text written in the history of humanity. So, Powerful, two powerful verses. So thus, when you hear my teachings very specifically, when you encounter the International Sanatana Dharma Society and how we teach authentic Vedic spirituality and Sanatana Dharma and have done for decades and decades, when you encounter our books, our videos, etc., you can know for a fact that what we are teaching you does indeed come directly from the Vedic scriptures. That's why with not every single talk, but pretty much almost every talk I give, these talks tend to be commentaries on the Vedic scriptures, because the Vedic scriptures are the basis of it all. If we wish to have knowledge, and if we claim especially, because I know we have many people in this open live stream of various different paths, different religions, etc., and you're certainly welcome here. But for those individuals especially who claim, oh yes, I'm following Vedic this, yoga that, etc., if you do not understand that every utterance that henceforth comes out of your mouth must be based on the Vedic scriptures, then you have not even begun to understand the very basics of Sanatana Dharma. This is why we focus on the scriptures. And this is why what we do is authentic. We keep it authentic. With that, I thank you very much for listening to my talk. And if you have any questions, now is the time to ask those questions. And please feel free. I know, again, as always, there's a little bit of a lag. When I tell you it's time to ask the questions, you probably don't actually hear me for at least 30 seconds afterwards. So I'll give people a little bit of time. Here's a question. Do the cravings of the soul evolve through lifetimes? They wax and wane. They wax and wane. See, this is what is interesting about, let's say, the sojourn of the soul within the material world as they, through their illusory ego, as they engage in activities, both ethical and unethical, within the material world as a result of their desires. And thus they accumulate karma, and thus they reincarnate. What happens is a waxing and waning of all such things. This is why you can have one individual soul who in one lifetime, for example, they can be a rather nice person, but then in their next lifetime, they're not so nice. And then it can just kind of wax and wane, wax and wane. Well, this is the case also for cravings as well. It's not that, oh, if a soul is here for a certain number of lifetimes, in accordance with how many lifetimes they're here, their craving just grows and grows and grows. No, that individual at a certain point, for example, can start to practice spirituality to some degree, and those cravings will start to recede a little bit. But let's say that they're not successful in their path. Well, maybe in a future lifetime they'll start to grow again. So it waxes and wanes. So this is why the very best thing to do is that when one is finally in the current lifetime aware of the deleterious effects of unwarranted craving, this is why it's very wise to try to control our cravings as much as possible, as much as is within reason, and yogically so. You know, not to artificially repress the cravings, but again, to understand them, have control over them, and transcend them. So I hope that answers the question. All right, I will answer this question next from John Fortuna. And again, people have been asking many similar sorts of questions to this, because it is indeed a phenomenon that does happen with people in the initial stages of meditation. And when I say initial, I'm talking about even the first year or so. I'm not trying to imply that you just started meditating a week ago. No, this can happen for quite some time. Sri Acharyaji, lately after meditation, I've been experiencing distressing memories of uncomfortable experiences from the past. Why is this the case? What should I do to remedy this issue? Thank you. Again, this is something that occurs to many people. It's quite common, actually. And I've spoken about this in the past, but it bears repeating, again, because it happens so often. When we begin the meditation process, what are we doing in a way? In a way, what we're doing is certainly we're going inward, but also we are beginning to encounter the chitta, the mind substance, for the very first time in many cases. I mean, really encounter it. And when that occurs, what is within that mind substance? What is within those memories? What is within that storehouse of memory, of data, of impressions, of perceptions, of conceptions that we have had for multiple lifetimes? Many things, good things, bad things, traumas that have occurred to us. Yes, indeed, bad experiences, good experiences. And what begins to happen is that, again, in the very beginning stages of meditation, we are first encountering this. But then when we continue with meditation, what does meditation do? It is purifying the mind. And what does that mean? First of all, this kind of, in a way, jumps to the very end of your question, but that's all right. It gives the answer. When we are purifying the mind, all of these traumatic events, bad memories, again, just nasty things that are there, and bad desires, etc., faults that we have, undue anger, hatred, lusts, greed, etc., all of these things begin to recede. Indeed, they begin to fade away. They're like a fog. They seem like they're real, but then when the sun arises, that fog, that mist begins to just evaporate and disappear. Well, in the same way, that begins to happen in the purification process. But at the same time, as I've described many times, in the meantime, imagine that you have a room that has not been opened, no one has been in there for 20 years, maybe more, maybe 50 years. And you have this goal of going into that room and cleaning it. Well, when you get into that room and you start to move anything, you start to do anything in that room to clean it, what's the first thing that's going to happen? It's going to seem worse. Suddenly there's dust everywhere to the point where you can barely see anything. And you begin to almost say to yourself, oh my God, this room looks worse now that I've just started to clean it. But that's the point. You've just started. Yes, the dust now is going to be flying everywhere, but you continue the process. And in time, what happens? Oh, you open the window, that lets some of the dust out. You keep cleaning, you get rid of the dust, you get rid of the dust, you get rid of the dirt, you straighten things, etc. And eventually you have a completely clean room and the dirt is gone. In the same way, this is what I would say about these distressing memories of uncomfortable experiences from your past. Certainly continue meditation, but also let me go a little deeper actually. The very fact that we've had this discussion, the very fact that you are now aware of why these memories of these previous experiences are indeed coming back to you, now you have a power over them. Now, indeed, you can have an awareness for when the next time you're in meditation, and yes, in that meditation, encountering the mind substance, you begin to experience these memories again. Now you're equipped in that you understand why this is happening. So you are not to let it agitate you. Don't let it give you fear. Don't let it give you doubt in any way. Now you understand why that's happening and allow that knowledge to help you to continue with the process. And whatever you do, continue with the process. Again, just like that room, you don't want to just start, you see a dust cloud, and then you just say, forget this, and you run out of the room and you don't clean the room. Stick with it, and the room will be clean. In the same way, stick with the meditation, you will have a pure mind. And these traumatic memories of the past will disappear like they were never even there to begin with. I hope that was helpful. Here's a very interesting question, actually, and I will answer this. Is it selfish to desire to be in the Abode of Vishnu instead of wanting to stay in this world to help lead others to Vishnu, or is this perspective false humility? Excellent question, actually. And let me answer this briefly, but answer this in a way that hopefully will be satisfactory. Both desires are good, actually. Both desires are transcendental. Both desires are not of the nature of selfishness. And let me explain why. Transcending even the very question itself, transcending even these two options themselves, what is motivating the bhakta? What is motivating the true yogi, the devotee of Vishnu, is something beyond even these two routes that you mentioned. That is, what is motivating the devotee is this: I wish to serve Vishnu, to serve Narayana, wherever Narayana desires me to. So thus, the truth of the matter is, the highest devotee doesn't really seek either. He may in a secondary sense, but his primary motivation is to serve God. And thus, if it is God's will that indeed he achieve full liberation in this lifetime and go directly to Vaikuntha and be in God's presence, or that as a very pure being he stay in this world and help others and teach others and make self-sacrifices such that others can make spiritual advancement, whatever it is that God desires, the pure devotee says, God, your will be done, not mine. So the truth of the matter is, while both of these options are there, and certainly while the yogi internally may somewhat prefer one to the other, ultimately their primary desire is to serve God. And whatever God wishes, that's what will happen. Indeed, there are beings who have been in this world for lifetimes who in actuality are liberated beings who do not even belong here in this world. The truth of the matter is they could have been with God long ago, but they are indeed here. And why? Because it's God's will. There are not many such beings, but there are such beings throughout history. And there are beings like that here even now. So that is the primary motivation, is devotion to God. And what God wants, that's what I will. So I hope that answers the question. Very important question. Can we create mantras to the gods, or do they have to be revealed to a guru? Yes, very good question. We cannot create mantras in any way, shape, or form. They cannot be concocted. They cannot be simply poetically constructed by someone who means well or simply has a good amount of knowledge, etc., etc. True mantras are revealed, always. This is the process. This has always been the process in all of the truly ancient dharmic religions, whether we're speaking about Asa true, whether we're talking about pre-Christian European religion, whether we're talking about Sanatana Dharma, Buddhism, etc., etc., etc. All of the ancient traditions recognize that true formulaic mantras must be revealed to an individual who has the ability to encounter them and reveal these sacred vibrations. They can never be created. It's not a matter of, oh, you get a really smart person and he just kind of knows poetry and language very well, have him sit down and create something beautiful, and oh, now this is a mantra that will, the recitation of which will now have a desired effect, and especially when it comes to liberation or communing with a specific deity. No, it cannot be created, it must be revealed. So I hope that answers that question. Very nice. Here's a question that I would like to answer, actually. This is from Andrew Weber, and he asks, I am new to Sanatana Dharma. Oh, let me stop there. First of all, welcome. Welcome, and I hope that your journey in Sanatana Dharma is one that is full of happiness and full of joy for you. So welcome to Sanatana Dharma. I am new to Sanatana Dharma, and I wish to understand karma. What is karma, and how does it work? And how can I earn good karma? Very nice. Some excellent questions. And again, this is something that while I have addressed this in the past in several videos, again, because you are new to Sanatana Dharma, I would like to answer this for you, Andrew. First of all, as far as what karma is, karma comes from the Sanskrit verb root kr, meaning to do, to act, to perform, etc. And what karma means is basically, in the most generic of senses, anything that is an action. And a lot of people don't know this. People seem to think that the word karma only refers to this idea of ethical reciprocity. Oh, if I do good, good will happen. If I do bad, bad will happen. That's the secondary sense of the word karma. Karma actually means simply to do. But now, in doing anything in this world, in doing anything with our thoughts, with our speech, with our action, there is a very special sort of doing, a special category, and this is what is called ethical doing. That is when we do something where indeed we wish to either harm someone or to benefit someone. So thus ethics now becomes involved. It is now at this point that we engage in such actions. So, I'm sorry for the vivid imagery, but, I go and I slap a dog, or I go and I give $10 to a starving person. You see, a bad thing, a good thing. When I do any sort of ethical activity like this, it is one of the principles of dharma, that is one of the principles of natural law, that as a result of that ethical thing that I have done, either good or bad, now there is an equal and opposite reaction to that. That is, now that I did a bad thing, something in the future will now have to come to me in reciprocity and to the same degree of what I did. It's not that, I slapped a dog and now I'm going to have my head chopped off in the future. No, it has to be to the same degree. And then this is true for the good things as well. So this is how karma operates. And again, there is both good and bad karma, but this is the principle that is of importance to understand. Two principles actually, but let's start with this one. First of all, it is karma itself, or let's say the fruit of karma. That is, now that I've done an ethical thing, now I need to be here in this material world to experience the resultant effect. That is what keeps us bound, enslaved, imprisoned within materiality, is waiting for that karma. That's the first thing to understand. Now, the second important thing to understand, and this deals with a very important stereotype that unfortunately many people, too many people, have about karma, and that is that karma somehow means that I'm a slave to fate, or something is going to happen to me in the future that I may like or not like, but it has nothing to do with me. It's just something that's going to happen to me. God or the gods just decided I'm going to be harmed in the future or benefited in the future. No. This is why I painted the scenario in the way that I did. Karma is something that we exclusively create for ourselves through our free will choices. You see, I chose, and of course not in reality, I love animals so much, it's amazing, but just using this example, I chose to go up to that innocent dog and slap it in the face. No one forced me, God didn't force me, I chose to do that. Here is this very poor person who's starving. I chose to give them $10 so they could go to the grocery store on the corner, buy some food to eat. So thus, we are the authors of our own karma. We thus are the authors of our own future. In creating karma, we are creating ourselves and our future. So that's important to understand. At the same time, now dealing with the very last question that you ask, and that is, and how can I earn good karma? Interestingly, this is another sad stereotype that many people have, and it's understandable, how people can make this mistake. The goal in life is not to create good karma, actually, interestingly. And the reason why this is the case is because all karma, good and bad, keeps us bound to this world. You see, the fact that I gave this person $10, well, now I have, let's say, I'm dealing with this in a very, very simple way. Now I have $10 worth of karma coming back to me at some point in the future. It may be later in this life. It may be 5 lifetimes from now, but this is the point. Now I have that karma that is coming to me that I must be here to experience. So thus, even good karma keeps us bound to the material world, not just bad karma. This is a mistake that, again, it's understandable that people would make this mistake because you hear the word good, therefore it must be something spiritually beneficial. No, when it comes to the realm of material ethics, that is charity or harming within the material world, these are things that pertain to the material world. Neither activity is transcendental in nature. So thus, either good or bad karma are things that keep us bound to illusion, to ignorance, to suffering, to this world, and both are to be transcended, both good and bad karma. How do we transcend all karma altogether, and thus we don't have future karma coming to us, and thus we can finally have liberation? Very simply, with all of our activities. First of all, yes, we avoid all unethical things. That's a given. We never slap that dog in the face. We don't do anything unethical. But more than this, with every even ethical action that we do it not merely for the sake of that ethical action, but in a mood of devotion and service toward God. When we do this, we are now transcendentalizing our actions in such a way that this will lead us toward liberation. So this is ultimately what we want to do, is not just avoid bad karma, not just gain good karma. We want to transcend all karma, and we want all of our activities to be of the nature of pure consciousness, where it is all done in the service of Vishnu, of Narayana. So I hope that answers the question for you. If not, I would recommend please read Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita goes very in-depth into also the nature of karma and how this concept works. Please give me a few moments because I know there are so many questions. I want to see if there are any other questions a little bit further down. Actually, let me read this one comment. Mr. Odenswolf. Thank you, Sri Acharyaji, for the book recommendation, The Complete Illustrated Book of Yoga. So I was correct, I believe, on the title by Swami Vishnu Devananda. I have ordered a copy of the book. Again, thank you. You are very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm glad that you followed that recommendation. It is indeed a very good book on asana and how to do asana correctly. Very good. Here is a question. Do you have to believe in the concept of God to practice Vedic spirituality? Without believing in the concept of God, there is no reason to practice Vedic spirituality. So yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's kind of like asking, do you have to believe in the concept of health to study medicine? If you don't believe in the concept of health, your study of medicine is going to be very confusing to you. It's going to not lead to anything good. So yes, the entire point, the sole point of Vedic spirituality is to know God. And if you don't believe in God, then you can't even quite literally begin the first step of what is a multi-mile journey. So yes, belief in God is crucial. That's the only reason to practice Vedic spirituality. Here's a nice question. I have read the Bhagavad Gita and I'm currently reading the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. What should I read next? Very nice. Well, one thing I would certainly recommend is Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a book that in these live streams and other places, I have commented on verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam many times. I would certainly recommend that you read that next for a variety of reasons, especially because it is both philosophically, let's say, a continuation of what are the summary teachings of Bhagavad Gita, but also since you've studied the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, so thus I assume you have a great interest in yoga as well, The Srimad Bhagavatam also goes very, very, very deeply into yoga as well, especially in the 3rd canto, in the 11th canto, quite a few places actually all throughout the various 12 cantos. It talks about yoga very, very deeply. So I would recommend that you get a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam. I would suggest that you get the translation and commentary by Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. That is a multi-volume translation and commentary. And as I've mentioned in the past, it's also available for free, because if you want to buy it, it's a little bit expensive. It's also available for free online if you go to Vedabase online, and I can't remember if it's .com or .org, but you'll find it. Just go to your favorite search engine and look for Srimad Bhagavatam Vedabase, and you'll have the full translation for free online. Otherwise, if you want to buy it, I would definitely recommend that as well. And that'll keep you busy for some time. When you finish Srimad Bhagavatam, please come back, ask me what you should read next. But that will take you quite some time. It's a very big, very beautiful, detailed, spiritual magnum opus. So I hope you enjoy reading that. Namaste Guruji. Who is the supreme goddess? Sri Lakshmi. Sri Lakshmi Devi. Sri Lakshmi Devi. As in the Shriman of Shriman Narayana. Sri Lakshmi Devi is the supreme goddess. Someone is asking, thank you, Sri Acharyaji, for the wonderful lecture. I assume that on November 1st at 7 p.m., you will also be here live on YouTube. We're not going to be making any announcement about that. We're not scheduling something way in advance, but let me just say that the important thing is certainly that you yourself recite the Om Namo Narayanaya 108 times. However, I'm not really giving too much away. If you happen to be here on our YouTube channel at around that time, you might also have a surprise as well. I'll just leave it at that. Very good. Oh, we have about 2 more minutes. Let me look quickly, see if maybe there's another question that I can answer very, very quickly. Oh, let me answer this question actually, and I'll again try to answer this quickly but accurately. And this is a question from Nick. Can paramam padam, that is the abode of Lord Vishnu, the supreme abode, can it be experienced while alive through meditation? Is it visual, audio, energetic? How is it experienced? It is very good. Excellent question. It is experienced purely via consciousness and consciousness alone. It's not something that's experienced with the physical body. It's not something that is experienced with the astral body in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. It's not an occultic, to use a favorite term of, unfortunately, a lot of spiritual neophytes in the West. It's not an occultic experience. It's something that's experienced via pure consciousness alone. Our consciousness, indeed, in meditation, while still being in this world, we can indeed experience Vaikuntha itself. The only difference being that we are experiencing it via consciousness while still situated here. And the ultimate goal is, of course, and the ultimate destination, regardless, is to eventually, naturally, of course, leave the body behind when we just naturally pass away, and to then experience that realm in our pure consciousness alone. So yes, to answer your question, it can be experienced. This is what's called Jivan Mukta. While still within the material world, we can still experience both liberation, as well as, if we are a great devotee of Vishnu, within our consciousness steeped in samadhi, we can, while still situated physically in this realm, we can experience Vaikuntha itself. the ultimate goal then being to eventually leave this body and be there holy. So I hope that answers the question for you. And with that, it has been an hour, and as always, I am so sorry. I know there are many, many other questions, and I cannot answer them all just due to time, but we will be doing this again next Monday, so please join us again then. We will continue doing this every single Monday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and I thank you all for being here, for all of your questions. Again, just to remind you, please, on this coming Sunday, which is November 1st at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we are having globally throughout the entire world Holy Name Day. And we know for a fact we're going to have people in multiple dozens and dozens and dozens of nations doing this with us. Through YouTube alone, we reach approximately 140 nations. Which is truly amazing. We have viewers and supporters in 140 nations. But on that date, at that time, we will have people throughout the world coming together, wherever you are, at least coming together in intent, and 108 times reciting the mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. Please join us on that day and do likewise. Please recite this mantra 108 times. In order to eradicate evil off the face of the earth, in order to usher in goodness upon the earth, in order to restore Dharma to this world, in order to save the earth herself, and in order to help commence this golden age that so many of us have been waiting for so long. Please join us on that day. And with that, also, if you have not subscribed yet to our channel, please do so now. As you've seen, this channel is unlike any other spiritual channel anywhere on YouTube or anywhere else. Please join us. Please support us by being here for all of our videos in the future. Please visit our website when you have a chance, dharmacentral.com. When you're there, feel free to sign up for our email list that is there. Feel free to look at our books that we have. Our books are incomparable. They explain Sanatana Dharma like no other works do. Please look at those books and get those books. If you feel so inclined, if you would like to support our work, and we have a nonprofit 501c3 religious movement, it's a spiritual movement, please feel free to become a member of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. That is our movement. And you can become a monthly tithing member for whatever amount. It can be as low as $5 a month. It can be as high as whatever you wish. But please help us in this way by becoming an official member of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. With that, I thank you again for being here. Please join us again next Monday and every Monday. And with that, I ask you all to please take very good care of yourselves in these very turbulent times, in these times of transition where, again, evil is in its final death throes. But sometimes that can be a dangerous time when evil is dying. Please be very careful. Take good care of yourselves in every way that you need to, so that you can be with us again every single Monday and be part of our family. With that, I thank you. Namaste. Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Victory to Sanatana Dharma. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Victory, victory, victory to the Dharma nation. Evam Bhavatu. May it be so. Until next we meet.